She put a pot on she hair and gone. Them a the first one out on the dam. Basket on she head, bucket in each hand. Hold up on she frock, I wanna she grandson. To the market, them a go. For the morning, the day is dawning. For cockacrow to give the villagers a warning. Rise and shine, the birds them a sing. All animal take turn as them join in the waking. Cockacrow, dagabag, donkey, bray, horse, and they even duck a quack. Cockacrow, dagabag, donkey, bray, horse, and they even duck a quack. Come and hear this sweet story that tell the people about life in the country. All day a back down, me now a come home. Inaga, jackass yard for fetchy load. Cockle shy hand, bag over shoulder, running by his side, a Rexy and Rover. From the farm, them a come. Sun a go down but up the river. Some washing clothes, some folks are bathing at the water. Fisherman, they catch them a bring. From a canoe boat, man, them start offloading. Aymara, Kwakwari, Gale Baka Kuma Kuma, even Lokunani. Aymara, Kwakwari, Gale Baka Kuma Kuma, even Bangameri. Listen to this sweet story that tell the people about life in the country. Them children glad when the weekend come. Out in the yard, them all gather round. Some a play catcher, some making house from straw. Two who come later, a grandma or grandpa. All a sit down just a wait. Moonlight so bright, it's just the right time to listen story or to say a little nursery rhyme. Grandpa voice a echo in the night as he tell some picnic are there with fright. Oh, Ligan, Mungeza, Massa Kurma Nancy, even Watamuma. Oh, Ligan, Mungeza, Massa Kurma Nancy, even Watamuma. Yeah, man, that's the true story that tell the people about life in the country, life in the country.
All right, hey, guess what? Good morning. Well, it's not morning, it's afternoon, and you know we seldom they do make that sort of mistakes here on 107.1 FM. In fact, we hardly make mistakes, right? Especially when we're presenting facts, evidence, and so forth. So I've noticed our operator, Good Morning to Lemon, has already put up the this so-called slideshow or whatever it is that the police folks in Guyana, they were attempting to do yesterday, which was basically to throw water on this heat that is happening, the heat that the police force is facing right now, the heat that certain quote unquote businessmen are facing with right now. And so everybody's rushing to throw water. Everybody's rushing to do some PR work to cover up for each other, to say, hey, you got to stand for me. You got to protect me. And that's what's going on. Don't be fooled. That's exactly what's happening. Never before have we seen the Guyana Police Force at the level that it is at right now. And the fact that it is known that the Guyana Police Force is not the police force that we knew of, maybe just not maybe recently, but in times The police force was there to protect and serve the people of the country. Unfortunately, we're not seeing that. The police force seems to be working and doing the biddings of certain business people, so-called business people, and so forth. That is what's happening, and that is why you will find that these guys are going to try to gang up against a policeman that comes out to talk about a particular situation. I'm not bothered at this moment as to whether the policeman that is talking is perfect, or that's irrelevant. That policeman, Mr. Bascom, has made some serious allegations against the senior members of the Guyana Police Force, and being in bed and trying to cover up a murder probe because it has to do with as they call in Guyana, everybody's a businessman, but the fact that this murder probe has something to do with that guy, Mohammed, and Mohammed has rushed out to defend himself and his business. Of course, these things are expected. But when the police force came out to say what they had to say, lots of people are of the view that exactly what the police force was saying was no different from what Mohammed issued in that so-called ranting of a press release, if you want to call that basically talked about a bunch of irrelevant things, but nothing about this murder probe into the death of Paper Schultz. And oftentimes we like to get folks on this show, folks who know what they're talking about, and folks who can explain and break things down for you guys in an honest way. Yesterday, we had the lawyer for Mr. Bascom, Mr. Nigel Hughes, was on explaining from a legal standpoint what came out of that so-called press conference. Today, we have a former assistant commissioner of police, a man who has served the Guyana Police Force for over 40 years with distinction. He is with us. He has his own show, but today we have invited him to be on. And when we got news from our executive producer that Mr. Paul Slawe has decided to accept our invitation, we were happy to have him on. So bear with us for just about 30 seconds. We are going to play part of the clip of this so-called press conference, and then we will have Mr. Paul Slawe, who's already in studio waiting for us. But he's not in our studio. He's in his studio, Speaking Out studio. We'll be right back with Mr. Paul Slawe, so that you guys will get a better understanding from a police perspective what is happening currently in the Guyana Police Force. We'll be right back with former Assistant Commissioner of Police, Paul Slawe.
And that he was supposed to be killed to take the fall for the murder of Mr. Collins. However, what is important to note is the Guyana Police Force, which is to submit that it was Roger Collins, his lawyer, who made the claim that Randall Bacchus was one of the suspects captured on the CCTV footage who opened fire on the unrecorded for this. Connor also said that he has information that Mark Richmond was the driver of the getaway car. So Boston's claims are malicious and untrue. And what the Guyana Police Force has also sought to do is to provide evidence. And this is a WhatsApp conversation between the lawyer for Roger Khan and the police. Roger Khan, through his attorney at law, and this is the facts, Roger Khan, through his attorney at law, provided information. First, and sent the telephone number for Randall Bacchus, Mark Richmond. He also sent pictures of Randall Bacchus and that of several men in uniform on the WhatsApp. They give you credible information, giving evidence. So the Guyana Police Force, the Criminal Investigation Department.
All right, welcome again to Straight Up. Well, not necessarily straight up, but it's our afternoon show. My name is Mark Benchap, and good afternoon to all of you. Good afternoon to our guest. No stranger to you guys at all. No stranger to Guyanese and even folks in the Caribbean and outside of the region as well. Mr. Slow, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mark. Good afternoon, and good afternoon to your viewers. Good afternoon to your listeners.
All right, let's begin with, first of all, thank you for taking time out even at such a short notice. Let's begin with what you just heard there, that the crime chief, Mr. Blanham, is saying in response to allegations being made by Detective Sergeant Dion Bascom. Mr. Blanham, the crime chief, just said that what they are presenting right now is credible evidence, even without an investigation. Take the first bite of that, please, sir.
Well, I don't know who determines that it is credible and by what process you will use to determine the credibility of the evidence. The fact that Blanham is saying that it is credible does not make it credible. For evidence to be credible, it has to must have gone through a particular process. And I don't think, based on what he is saying, that we can just accept the evidence as being credible.
Exactly. But in all your years and your service to the Guyanese people as a police, have you ever seen such haste in rushing to instead of an investigation to call, if they want to call this a press conference, to defend themselves? Are they really defending the Guyana Police Force, or who are they really out to defend? Your take.
Well, I looked at the press conference. I saw a part of it live, and then I went and I looked at the recording. And, I was in the process of drafting a letter. And I am saying that the press conference has raised more questions than answers. Because, first of all, one would have thought that if you're going to call a press conference, a serious press conference, one of the things you would have been saying is that you're concerned about the allegations and that you are going to call for a proper investigation. But it is clear that this press conference was just hurriedly put together to attack the credibility of Dion Bascom, which is remarkable. A police sergeant is making these allegations, and I would say that based on what I know about the allegations, I tend to believe most of what he has said. I believe most of what he has said, and what they have to do, or what the government has to do, as people have been clamoring for recently, is to have a proper investigation. And I said yesterday on my program that, having regards to all that has transpired, there needs to be two investigations. One, to investigate the murder of Mr. Ricardo Fagundes, which occurred over 18 months ago and which seems to have reached a dead end, and a commission of inquiry to inquire into the allegations made by Sergeant Bascom. And I made the point yesterday that the reason for a commission of inquiry is because you want people to be able to give evidence on oath. Let them go and perjure themselves so that you can charge them for perjury. You want to be able to subpoena, to demand documents and records. And that is the only way you can get to the bottom of the allegation that the sergeant has made. So I don't know, this to me, this press conference, this so-called press conference, was really a disaster. And it did not do the administration of the force and those persons who were there any good.
It certainly didn't do them any good at all. And it's apparent that they're not concerned about that public image, that majority of the Guyana folks in Guyana and even outside of Guyana do not believe them. Are you at all concerned in the way that this whole thing has gotten, where it is right now, that the police force is refusing to investigate this matter, and all you got was some report by OPR, and that report, according to Mr. Hicken, was submitted to the DPP. Break that down for us, please.
Well, I don't know what the OPR would have investigated based on what they said, based on what the man who sits in the chair of the commission said. Apparently, the investigation has to do with the expletive-laden Facebook posts made by Mr. Bascom. They seem more concerned about Mr. Bascom using expletives in a Facebook post than the substance of the allegation. That seems to me the major concern. Oh, Bascom is a serving member of the force. They claim to have some code of conduct, which I don't know of. And basically should not have been using expletives. And that is what they are going to investigate. Not the allegation that there's a cover-up for this murder, not the allegation that the head of the major crime unit took $30 million. And then it was really laughable that Mr. Blanham, the crime chief, is making an issue over the fact that perhaps somebody had said it was 15 million. So the 15 million is now 30 million. So the amount of the bribe, the alleged bribe, is of importance as against the bribe himself. This is outrageous.
Never before have we seen this, and it's pretty obvious what they attempted to do there. One of the things that came out of that press conference is the fact that the allegation, well, it's not an allegation, but Mr. Bascom actually said that he was threatened by one of the suspects, that is Mark Richmond, who happens to be a security guard for Azardine Mohammed's, their business. According to the crime chief, that he is saying that basically he's dismissing that, oh yeah, a threat was made. It happens all the time. And whenever a threat is made against a policeman or policewoman, it is just registered and that's the end of it. Do you find that as being strange?
Well, very strange. Not surprising, though, that very strange, because if you recall, back in 2017, there was a allegation about a threat against the president's life. And I think it was treated in the same callous manner. But here you have, this is not any policeman. This is not any report of threat. This is a man who is investigating, who is part of a team investigating an execution-style murder. He reports to the man in charge of him, Superintendent Caesar. That is according to Bascom. That, look, this man called me on the phone. A major or a main suspect in this murder called me and basically threatened me. He's told to make a report at Breakdown Police Station, which he did. And according to the crime chief, we don't investigate threats. So the fact that the sergeant who is investigating this serious crime, execution-style murder, is alleged to be threatened by a main suspect in this murder, is told to make a report to the Breakdown Police Station. And the story is the crime chief. Well, we don't have time with that. That is a threatening behavior report, and we don't deal with that type of behavior. Really, really, really remarkable statement from the crime chief of the Guyana Police Force, an assistant commissioner to boot.
Absolutely. Do you see, based on what you're hearing coming out of the Guyana Police Force, we heard it yesterday from no other than the crime chief himself, Mr. Blanham, acting guy there, Mr. Hicken. Do you see that there's this energy that they have, which is to just go after Bascom, to totally discredit Bascom, and with the intention of having this whole thing just disappear just like that without any proper investigation?
Well, it seems so. It seems so. And I would venture to say that if they had used the same energy to investigate the murder of Ricardo Fugandez and the allegations made by Sergeant Bascom, perhaps we would have gotten somewhere. But they had no energy, they had no desire to pursue, to vigorously pursue, it would appear, those allegations and that crime. But here it is, press conference, big press conference to, according to them, to attack the credibility of Bascom, to say, well, he's lying. And he said so several times, that Bascom is lying. There's no evidence. This is really a remarkable development. And people have said, the credibility of those forces and the Guyana Police Force, whatever little they add, a press conference of that nature and what transpired yesterday can only serve to further erode the alien image of the Guyana Police Force.
Absolutely. If you're now joining us 24 minutes after 1 o'clock, Mr. Paul Slawe, former Assistant Commissioner of Police and the Guyana Police Force, is here to give us his perspectives on the press conference yesterday held, or if you want to call it a press conference held by Mr. Hicken and Mr. Blanham. People are just concerned about what they heard coming out of that press conference, and they're not optimistic that justice will prevail in Guyana, not only with the Fagundes murder case, but other murder cases and other crimes in Guyana. They're particularly concerned about the direction that the police force is heading. Here's a question. Do you think that the police force is being forced to defend this particular murder probe because of who one of the main suspects might very well be, Azardine Mohammed and his security guy, Mark Richmond, whom the police have refused to question, or if they have questioned, we don't know. Do you think it has to do with power and money and politics?
Well, the power and money, because allegation of $30 million being paid to have this matter covered up speaks about power and money. But I believe, it is my view, that they are more interested in covering it up, because if the facts are to be revealed, many of them might be implicated. And I think they are motivated by that. They don't want the facts to be revealed, because if those facts are revealed, they themselves are going to be implicated in this and perhaps even other unprofessional acts.
His lawyer, Mr. Bascom's lawyer, Nigel Hughes, has written to the office of the president requesting that the person who sits there in the seat offer protection of Mr. Bascom. We don't know where that is at the moment, but we heard before Mr. Ali left for Trinidad, he says he's open for that. Your take on this whole protection of citizens and so forth, and is that a useful thing, particularly in Guyana?
Well, yes, it's always good to try to protect witnesses. I don't know the extent to which that can be done in Guyana, but in other jurisdictions, they pay a lot of emphasis on making sure that witnesses are protected, especially whistleblowers, people who come forward and reveal information. But let me say this: I read on social media the letter that the lawyer representing Mr. Bascom, Mr. Nigel Hughes, wrote to the president, and I found the response to be very, very interesting. Is that the president did say that he did not see the letter. The issue is, this letter has been written. It has been confirmed by the office of the president that such a letter is in the system. I would have thought that if people are interested in the safety and to make sure that the witness is protected and to get to the bottom of this matter, whether you saw the letter or not, instructions would have been given for certain action to be taken. But to suggest that until and unless you read the letter and see the content of the letter, you're not going to be able to take action, that is really remarkable.
Remarkable indeed. How comfortable are you, though, with Mr. Irfan Ali offering protection to Mr. Bascom, knowing that it is no secret in Guyana that Mr. Ali and this guy Azardine are very, very good friends? So much so that we are hearing that Mr. Azardine actually donated vehicles to Mr. Ali. In fact, the vehicle that Mr. Ali is driving, along with his wife, were donated, allegedly donated by Mr. Azardine. How comfortable are you with any protection of Mr. Bascom, especially since it has to do with a case pertaining to Mr. Azardine Mohammed?
Well, unless we hear what form the protection will take, because the protection can take many forms, and unless we hear what form the protection will take, I don't think we can jump to any conclusion, because, as I've said, don't let me assume that the protection can be in a building or at a hotel room with guards. It can take many, many, many forms, including having him sent to some other country or something like that. So it can take many forms, and unless we hear what form the protection will take, I don't think it will be prudent to make too much comment on it.
Mr. Slow, you're well experienced in terms of law enforcement and so forth. Do you really think, and you have had some dealings with Mr. Irfan Ali, who tried to coerce you, my term, coerce you into to doing something contrary to what the law probably suggests. Do you think, though, that Mr. Irfan Ali is serious about any protection of Mr. Bascom?
Well, again, as I say, I will give him the benefit of the doubt. I will give him the benefit of the doubt, and I would think that we'll have to wait and see what will happen. But let me say this: if the protection had been offered to me, if I were in Bascom's position, and the protection, again, depending on the nature, was offered to me, I would have been very, very cautious in terms of how it is whether I accept it or not.
All right, Mr. Paul Slow giving his take on this whole Bascom revelation. Uh, Mr. Blanham indicated that Mr. Bascom, in other words, he's just dismissing Mr. Bascom as just a regular detective sergeant, and that's it. And Mr. Bascom, might not have been privy to facts, as Mr. Blanham claims to be facts, that outside law enforcement agencies were actually involved in this particular case, and they are awaiting things to be returned. They have sent evidence and all these manner of things to be returned. How plausible is that coming from the crime chief?
Well, when I heard it like yesterday, I had a laugh because, again, 18 months or so. Remember this murder of Ricardo Fagundes took place, I think, it was April or something around 2021. So it's a long time now. So then I want to know what evidence would have been sent. Putting on my FBI cap, where I trained many years ago, there's no need, I think, for any ballistic evidence because they themselves said that they found empty casings there. I would have thought that at the post-mortem examination, if bullets were recovered from the body, they would have that. And I would also think that they have the capability to store that and to match it with any suspect firearm that might come in their possession at some time. I don't know that this requires any DNA, excuse me, any DNA type of evidence. I don't know what evidence they would have sent. And it is interesting that it's not until now that Bascom has made these damaging allegations that the public is now being told about outside assistance. And I take that not only with a pinch of salt, but with enough salt, Mark. I take that with a lot of salt.
Lots of salt.
Because again, it's about credibility. Again, it's about credibility. And they do not come across. Mr. Blanham and Mr. Ikin yesterday did not strike me as people who were giving a credible account of what transpired.
All right, 32 minutes after 1 o'clock. Let's move on to something else. You know, Guyana is a small place. People meet with people. They take photographs and so forth. But again, this guy keeps popping up, Azardine, in photographs with not only Irfan Ali, but photographs with the guy who sits there as the acting commissioner of police. And here it is that they are having a press conference to belittle Mr. Bascom, to attempt to discredit Mr. Bascom and so forth. But here it is. How confident, again, I ask, that they will get anywhere with this murder probe? And looking at that photo with Azardine Mohammed and Mr. Hicken there.
Well, again, as you have said it, you know, the fact that persons are there with you in a photograph by itself doesn't mean much. I mean, people all the time, even when I go around, people want to have a photograph with me, and I would allow them to take photographs. So that in itself,
but you certainly don't invite them just like that into your office, and you go by their office and you sit and you chit chat and you collect millions of dollars on behalf of the Guyana Police Force, and God in heaven knows on behalf of what else.
Well, you know, I have been very critical since I was a member of the force. I was very critical of businessmen and persons making donations to the police force because, as the country people would say, beg get beg back. And I don't think, well, let me put it this way. Most of these people who are making donations to the police force are doing so to be able to call in a favor at some time. So I have been against this from very, very, very long. Not now that I'm out, But since I was in the force, I had a reputation. So when you had activities and the commissioner, the management team will suggest that perhaps we can go to get help from the business community, I never used to be involved in that process. I used to tell them plain, no, I am not going to ask for anything. And even when donations were made, I was very careful to ensure that certain people, the donation from certain people are not accepted in my division. Go to some other division and make it if you want to.
Absolutely. So we are hearing also that this guy, Azardine Mohammed, is in the habit of moving around whenever he's driving around the country with police sirens and police protection and all these things. If those things are correct, how do we try to correct these things and not to have these sort of businessmen who feel that they're so powerful that they can just buy their way into anything? Your take on the police siren aspect?
Well, you know, the siren issue has become a big issue now because every Tom, Dick, and Harry drives around with a siren. I noted a few weeks ago, the police traffic department, there was this big thing with the private security companies where they were told that emergency warning appliances, i.e. siren and flashing lights, were not allowed on the vehicles. They seem to be targeting the private security companies that have been using these things and have been disregarding all the private citizens and the businessmen who are doing this. So, you know, and it was revealed some time ago in the matter with Marcus Bishram, you know. It was revealed, people don't tend to remember these things. It was revealed that Bishram used to be escorted to by the police when they when he comes into the country or when he is to leave. So I am saying that, you know, with all the traffic chaos and all the problems we have, and people are allowing the scarce, I would or the limited resources to be used in this fashion. But not only businessmen, you have even ministers of the government, junior ministers who are not entitled. Only last Sunday, people complained bitterly about the chaos in West Coast Borbies, and ministers were able to get the police vehicles, motorcycles, and vehicles to escort them through these the big 5-hour roadblock jam, the 5-hour build-up of traffic you had on the West Coast Borbies.
Again, because of an alleged so-called businessman who has links to the PPP felt that he was so powerful to have a horse racing event of which Mr. Irfan Ali and the PPP were all part of. And so they felt that they owned that entire area, just like some of these guys feel like they own Guyana, so they could do anything. They could buy their way into anything. And that is exactly what happened on the West Coast Borbies after and during that race, that horse racing event held by some so-called businessman, some jumbo jet or whatever. But outside of that, though, we also heard that a so-called minister, Bharat, not Jack Day, but another Bharat, was he allegedly drove past a police roadblock. He was stopped by the police. We are told, we don't know how accurate it is, that he appeared to have been drunk. All these things happen over the weekend there, now that you've mentioned that. But sorry, continue, sir.
Yeah, but some saying that the use of siren to escort businessmen, somebody yesterday raised the issue at the press conference about moonlighting. And the commissioner gave such an inadequate, as a commissioner, the man who sits in the chair, gave such an inadequate response that it is clear that these people are out of their depths. They don't know what to do. They don't know. And I've been seeing it all the time. It's clear indication of incompetence, and it will continue. And I believe that all that is happening, it is likely to get worse because these people are there. The things are covered down. So therefore, they're not learning from these mistakes. They can stay there, and they have no doubt the political bosses supporting them. So things are likely to get worse.
Are you at all concerned, Mr. Slawe, that this guy, one of the suspects in the murder of Fagundes, Mark Richmond, who happens to be a security guy for Azardine Mohammed, are you surprised that the police have not moved in yet to arrest this guy or even to arrest Azardine, to question them? and to make it appear that, look, they are concerned about the investigation, this murder probe. Are you concerned that they are not doing that at all?
Well, I'm concerned but not surprised, because if you hear this, the version of Sergeant Boscom, he and another officer were sent to Mr. Richmond's home to arrest him early one morning, 4-day morning, as we would say. And it is said that when they arrived there, they saw evidence that he had left early. And Boscom is alleging that he might have been tipped off that the police were coming for him. He further said that it was only a few persons who knew that they were going there to arrest him at that hour in the morning. So that allegation was made. It was further alleged that following some robbery or some theft at some place there where monies and gold might have been stolen, the very man who they had been sent to arrest and who had made a threat to Boscom, this is according to Boscom's version, walked into CID headquarters, walked into the major crime unit, and handed over a key to the man in charge of major crime, Superintendent Misuse. This is what Boscom is claiming. So the fact that he wasn't arrested then, I don't think that they are. I would be surprised if they move. Perhaps public pressure will now cause them to bring them in for questioning in respect to this case. But they seem convinced. Whatever investigation they might have done, they seem convinced based on what they're saying that Boscom is lying, and therefore the persons to whom he pointed fingers are innocent, and perhaps they're not going to pursue Boscom's claims.
You know, we have been hearing for years now allegations upon allegations upon allegations about this guy, Superintendent of Police Mitchell Caesar. This is not the first time you're hearing these allegations, and I've been around long enough there to have heard other allegations being leveled against. Are you surprised that the police force, especially coming out of that so-called press conference yesterday, that there is no talk about an investigation into the allegations that are being leveled against this guy, Caesar? One, the $30 million. The other, the covering up of the murder probe. And the other being in the pocket of Azardine Mohammed. Your take, sir, based on those.
I just want to remind you and the viewers and the listeners that I think it was around sometime in 2017 during the previous administration, the commissioner then had cause to remove Caesar, Blanham, and others from the CID, from the position of CID headquarters. I don't know the exact reason why they were removed, but they were removed for some reason. And it was not until immediately following the installation, as they would say, of the new government in August of 2020 that they all were brought back. And I know that they returned to CID headquarters was politically directed. I know that for a fact. That is not speculation. That is not hearsay. I know for a fact that the person who was there at the time, Mr. Nigel Appy, carrying out the functions of commissioner, was instructed to have Blanham and Caesar and a whole set of other people return to CID headquarters. They must have had the reason why they wanted that.
But as a senior former police officer who have spent 40 plus years serving the Guyana Police Force and by extension serving the Guyanese people, thank you for your service again. But are you comfortable with what you're seeing based on the allegations and based on the fact that this guy, along with others, were returned? Are you comfortable that the public will have that sort of confidence in these guys?
Well, I know for a fact, based on all the utterances and based on what is going on, the public does not have confidence in not only these guys, but the operations of the force. People, every day you will see what is being said. People relate their experiences with the force, and that is a worrying thing. And I have said before, and I'm repeating it here, that the force, there needs to be a reform of the Guyana Police Force. You have to have a reform. And for you to have any meaningful reform, some of the main players who are in key positions have to go. The police force cannot be reformed when you have some of those persons in the positions that they now hold. I have said so. I've even suggested, I know people have said, well, you're talking about resources. You look at the people who are available to fill positions, and maybe you don't have the qualified person. Their qualification is not only about academic qualification, but you have other measures. I believe that they need to look at other models of police management right around the Caribbean. I referred yesterday to Trinidad. Some years ago, they brought in a foreign commissioner and a deputy to try to pull things together. I spoke about Jamaica. So the models are there, and if they're really interested in making sure that some amount of credibility is returned to the force, perhaps they will examine those models and see how best they can adapt them to implement, to bring about this much needed change in the Guyana Police Force.
All right, well said, Paul Slawe here, former Assistant Commissioner of Police, telling it like it is. I watched a good portion of your program yesterday called Speaking Out. You were with your former colleague there, Mr. Clifton, I believe Clinton Conway. You guys did a great job. But part of what you said yesterday was very scary. You said that usually cards would have about, what, 2 jokers?
4, I think it's 4 in the regular pack of cards.
Well,
4
jokers.
Yes, I
You're
remember.
saying if you were to get a pack of cards from the Guyana Police Force, it will have a bunch of jokers. So when you shuffle that pack, there's always a high possibility of having a joker put here, a joker put there. Again, how scary is that, knowing that lots of jokers are within that pack when you shuffle it?
Well, it's very scary. It's very, very, very scary. And again, as I have said before, on many occasions, I don't blame the officers who are there. I blame the system, because efforts are not being made to have these persons properly trained for these senior positions. They're there, a man goes and leave, you just put a man in the position. Look, I remarked yesterday too about the immigration department. One of the few departments in the Guyana Police Force, perhaps the only department in the Guyana Police Force that people can say have been receiving lots and lots of praise. Lots and lots of praise. Over the past week or so, the head of that department has been removed. He's replaced by someone with little experience, a man who was promoted to superintendent from ASP only a few weeks ago or a month ago, brought from the Presidential Guard, put in charge of the as the Deputy Chief Immigration Officer in charge of immigration. And it didn't end there. When it was, I highlighted on our program that the person who was there as his deputy was senior to him. And by the next week, she is removed completely out of the immigration department. So that is part of the problem. That is this political interference, incompetence by the people who sit there. They don't consider these things, and you're going to end up with this problem. No proper training. You put in a man to be in charge of a serious unit like the immigration department. What training did you expose him to? You just pick him up, put him there? They have not been training officers to take these positions, and that is part of the problem. I made the comment yesterday to the analysis that on the fiasco on West Coast Maurice, check it out. Since August of 2020, when the government came into power, there have been no less than 5 divisional commanders have been there. 5 in just about 2 years. So what type of continuity, what type of management structure do you expect? So when these things happen, don't only blame the officers. You have to look at the system and to see what is being done to make sure that the system functions properly.
All right. Speaking of the system being functioning properly, lots of question marks hanging over the heads of a lot of those in senior ranks. We're hearing, and this is nothing new, we've been talking about many of those police officers who have failed their polygraph test. And we have all of that information here, but we are strategic in how we put that information out there. One such person who has failed this polygraph test is the current crime chief. Others have failed it as well, not just the crime chief. But what is your take on these officers failing a polygraph test that was administered, of course, compliments of the US, and it was done at the US Embassy. It was done by some Jamaicans. Your take on these guys actually failing their polygraph test?
Well, I've heard about officers indeed failing the polygraph test. I don't know what prompted the test, but if anyone fails a polygraph test, one tends to believe that perhaps you are not credible, you're not honest, you're not, you should not be entrusted with certain positions. But it is a serious indictment when one fails the test. But I think if you can, before you can really make any serious comment, you have to know what the test was administered for.
Well, I got a set of information as to what the test was actually administered for, and the questions, and how some of these guys failed miserably. For example, whether they have ever taken a bribe, whether they have ever taken money from drug dealers, drug lords, and money launderers, and these sort of things, whether they have exchanged, sex as a form of promotion for ranks within the Guyana Police Force. A lot of these guys have failed it, Mr. Slawe. Lots of them have failed it. And of course, there's always a note at the side of it as to why they have failed it. And then a bigger note that says serious concerns. Serious concerns as per law enforcement agencies outside of Guyana that have serious concerns with these individuals. Yet some of these individuals are saying that in order to discredit Mr. Bascom, is that they are portraying this impression that they have a cozy relationship with law enforcement agencies outside of Guyana. I'm very concerned about the polygraph test, the fact that a lot of these guys have failed it, and they sit there pretending to be law-abiding citizens. I don't know, Mr. Slawe.
But let me say this. Let me say this in terms of the comment you just made. I remember it was earlier this year. Brutus, the man who's there as admin, made a comment during an interaction with the people at university, at the University of Guyana. They had this the trainers program, and he commented, and I have it written down, I have it saved someplace. So it's what he said. I'm going to paraphrase, but he said that use of force, something to the effect, there seem to be a problem in the Guyana Police Force with the use of force. So much so that the United States State Department has blacklisted, that is what he said, has blacklisted several locations and individuals. That is what he said. And I've been asking since then, what does he mean by blacklisting and locations and individuals? And nobody seems to be taking it up. There's no answer to that. But based on what he said, it is clear that at least the United States Department have some concerns about some locations, that is what he said, and some individuals. Who can do, what can those locations be? Who can those individuals be? The question is out there to be answered.
Absolutely. I'm looking at one of the polygraph test results. This particular senior officer has passed. However, there's a note on it that says, this candidate passed the examination. However, this candidate has a serious drinking problem. Additionally, the candidate disclosed that he has been offered bribes on several occasions. He is also involved in the theft of petrol from the government motor vehicles. It is to be noted that he has a history of domestic abuse with his spouse. Senior police officer. And that is the report from the polygraph test. There are lots of other reports. For example, there is another one here that says, this candidate passed, and these are those who have passed, mind you, gotten through the cracks, not the ones who have failed. This one who passed, there's a note that says, this candidate passed the examination. However, there are some concerns. Please see report. I'm yet to see the report on that. However, let's go to another one here, and these are with big, significant concern. Significant concern. Special branch. Significant concern. Special organized crime unit. SOCU. Significant concern. One of the candidate, the examinee lied and withheld. This is a special branch officer. Lied. Sorry, let me get it here for you guys. Examinee lied and withheld information concerning the direct or indirect involvement in criminal organization. This is a special branch individual, senior. Now, concerning a SOCU, which is the Special Organized Crime Unit, big red ink, red mark, big red ink, red mark that says significant concern. This person failed his examination. And it says here, the member was withholding information concerning his direct involvement in criminal organization and corruption. Mr. Slawe, I can go on. There's another one here, but I'm not, for reasons at this point in time, not going to publish this list. It says here now, significant. This is someone, this is another senior one. Significant concern. The examinee lied and withheld information concerning direct or indirect involvement in criminal activity. Please see detailed report. Mr. Slawe, how concerned are you about this report? This is a credible report. This is not somebody who made this up. A credible report from a polygraph test that these senior officers have taken.
Well, that's really amazing, damaging, and I would have thought that reports like that, report like those, will have those persons sidelined. I don't know who the persons are, but I suspect that those same persons might very well be in senior positions and might have even been promoted. So that's the problem you have. And remember when these polygraph tests are done, they are not done by locals. They are done by people overseas. So I suspect that the foreign people might have access to that information. And when you know that a man failed a polygraph test because he had involvement with criminal, have involvement in criminal activities, I mean, what information, how do you think those people are going to react to you? So that is the problem you have. That is the problem that the force is going through. And as I've said, the force now requires drastic reform. No reform, no meaningful, no drastic reform can take place once certain people are in those senior positions. Let's understand, and it's plural, positions, not one position, positions. Nothing is going to happen, nothing significant is going to happen because those people are compromised. And once they are compromised, then nothing is going to happen. And I would normally say this from experience in the organization. You have people who are corrupt, senior people who are corrupt, and the junior people, they know. Many of them know exactly what is going on. They know that the supervisors, they know that their superiors are corrupt, and therefore they have no respect for them. They might fear them. They fear them because they fear transfer, fear victimization, so they might stay quiet. But they know what is going on. They know what is going on.
You know, and I'm looking at the report also, and I looked at a comment by some of comments by some of our listeners here. One in particular from, well, we'll always have the trenchies, but you call them the amphibians. That's a new form, that you have termed.
Yes, yes.
Coin, sorry. So one of the amphibians saying here is Mr. Paul Slawe on that list. I don't know what's wrong with these guys.
But let me answer that. Sure. Let me answer that. Because I was in the force when a decision was taken to polygraph senior officers. Mr. Green was the commissioner, and it was to be random. And I told him to tell them that I am not going to subject myself to any polygraph test because no allegation was ever made against me. At the time, serious allegations of drug runnings and other things were made against particular senior officers. And I said to Mr. Green then, God rest the dead, that if they want to start polygraph, let them start polygraph with those persons against whom serious allegations were made. So I have never undergone a polygraph test for the Trenchy. I have never undergone any polygraph. And I'm confident, I am confident that had I taken the polygraph test, I would have passed with flying colors because I have never been involved in corrupt practices, never.
And we have never heard that either. And I'm sure at that time when you said that to Mr. Green, he probably was feeling a certain way about
Of course, because a matter of fact, at the time I could tell you, I called names because the allegations were out there against senior people. I said, well, start with them.
Very senior people. Who
exactly. I said, start the polygraph with them, but don't tell me no random arrangement. Allegations are made against senior officers, and if you are going to do polygraph, start with them to know how credible, how truthful they are.
The amphibians aren't that smart. The two legs one. One of the officers sitting there at that press conference yesterday, here is a report. One of the two. Here is a report on one of them after the polygraph test, the results. And with big red ink. Some of them may have the files. I think they have the files. They should. Big red ink that says, and I want the public to hear, the examinee lied and withhold information concerning his direct or indirect involvement in criminal activity and profiting from illegal activities. Now, one of the two of them yesterday, but yet they sat there discrediting Bascom. I don't know, Mr.
Well, I would say they attempted to. You know, you said it discredited Bascom. I don't think they succeeded because anyone who listened to what transpired yesterday and look at the statements made by Bascom, I noted that they deliberately avoided. For example, they never even attempted to say whether it is true that Bascom was sent to arrest Mark Richmond. They never addressed that, whether he was in fact sent to arrest. And that is a crucial thing. If you want to talk about credibility, you can only pick at some parts of his statement. You have to examine it in its totality. That is how you're going to judge whether he has been forthright or not. And I noted the crime chief saying at the towards the end of the program yesterday, he's trying to find motive for Boston coming out. And again, not the fact that the allegations of corruption have been made, but because he was arrested by Kanu at this place where Kanu found drugs. And that is so laughable coming from the crime chief because the allegations were made long before that might have prompted it to come public. That might have prompted Bascom to come public, but the allegations, and he ought to know that because I know I'm not a police officer. I retired over 10 years, over 12 years now. And I got information long ago, what came to me, that these allegations were being circulating around the place. The very allegations that were made over the past week or so were there circulating since around March, April. I learned of it first because I returned to Ghana around April. I heard about those allegations. So for the crime chief to come and say that the reason why these allegations are being made is because Bascom was arrested by Kanu is disingenuous. That might have been the reason, and he said so. I mean, Bascom said that the reason why he's coming public because somebody called him to tell him that, and he said, Blanham, somebody called Bascom to tell Bascom that the fact that your picture was deliberately put there, what we call a mugshot, is because they want to associate you with drug dealings and drug runnings, so that if you're killed, then people will say the narrative will be, well, some drug deal gone wrong. And he said so. He said that is the reason why he made the, I think it was last Thursday, that is the reason why he made that tape the night, because somebody called him and warned him about that. So for the crime chief to come yesterday and say, well, the only reason Bascom is saying this now is because he was arrested by Kanu, is disingenuous.
You know, I recall when they trumped up those charges against you, and you were in the courtyard attending court when junior ranks just attempted to arrest you, and how they handled you. I wish they could handle these murder suspects the same way. I wish they can go into the compound of Azardine Mohammed and arrest him the same way, because they are suspects, mind you, suspects. And to use the same method in arresting Mark Richmond as well, just as how they attempted to arrest you and disrespected you. You haven't been accused of committing any serious crime, no murder or nothing, just a frivolous, trumped up charges against you. You were right there in the court, and the disrespect. Why is it that these guys are not so eager to apply the same pressure to Azardine Mohammed, who is a suspect in this murder case, this murder probe, and his security guy, Mark Richmond? Why
Well,
not?
all I can say, given my experience, there are waiting instructions. Because in the case you referenced there with me, they were given instructions to arrest me. Because they even went to the airport in anticipation of my return. They went to the airport and they waited there. I didn't arrive at that day. They went another day. I didn't arrive there. And then when I finally arrived to go to court, they turned up at the courtyard to arrest me. And I am aware. Let me say this again in relation to the statement made by Bladam yesterday that they don't have the capability of following people and tracking people. When I returned to Guyana in October of last year to attend court on those trumped up charges, they tracked me. I know that. They turned up at 2 locations where I had just left. They turned up there. The only way they could have known that I was there is that they were tracking me electronically. So I'm not that nonsense that he is talking there. Again, these things only serve to erode whatever little credibility they have. And they don't have much, you know. So any slight erosion means it's all gone. All gone. They don't have credibility. So when they come there and they talk, for example, out of the conference yesterday, and you know, we are being very generous in calling it a press conference. It's not really a press conference. You would have heard the man who sits in the chair of the commissioner saying, in response to a question by Gordon Mosley, when he asked him if Boscom should still be in the force, something to the effect. He went on to say there's a process, and no one in the force can be dismissed without going through a process. I had a big laugh about that because it's not so long ago I had cause to remarks on several programs that I have that people were recently dismissed. Damian McLennan and others were dismissed. No due process. I have a letter 2 weeks ago in the media over that. No due process. So when did this process that this man is referring to started? When did it start? When did it start? Again, it's all part of them lying. All part of them lying. It comes natural to them to come there and to lie. And many times they're not. The reporters don't follow up and ask them the difficult questions, and they tend to get away with it. But that is a style. That is a style. So I'm not. A lot of the things that are happening, while it is concerning, I am not surprised. I am not surprised, and as I've said before, things are likely to get worse.
Not surprised at all. Lots of us aren't surprised at all. And the barefaced lies coming from those individuals who were involved in that so-called press conference yesterday. Nigel Hughes pointed out, and correctly so last evening, that we have had equipment in Guyana that could track people's phone calls and people's locations since 2002, when we've heard of a laptop that was in the possession of Roger Khan when he was intercepted, on the east coast of Demerara and was allowed to go because of political instructions. We've heard of those devices over 20 years ago. So 20 years now, I mean, that was 20 years ago. So in 2022, is Blanham saying that the Guyana Police Force, they in the Guyana Police Force do not have such equipment to track criminals or what they're doing? They're eavesdropping into people's conversations as well. So Mr. Blanham might have been straying from the truth. You have alluded to that. Lots of us have already been able to read between the line. But what Mr. Bascom said was very important, that they got this laptop, they were able to open up the laptop, insert Mark Richmond's number in it, and it gave a precise location as to the and time where Mark Richmond was at that time. And according to Mr. Bascom, his location was in front of Palm Court. Mr. Blanham came out like a master blaster batsman to hit the ball for 6, but he got stumped. I don't know what's going on. Where do we go from here, though, Mr. Slawe?
Well, let me say this too. In relation to that same issue about the laptop that you mentioned. You know, sure. I did the. The thing about it, with modern technology, with Google, and a little bit of your ability to search. When I ordered that statement this morning, I Googled the thing, and I found the article and with pictures and all of that type of thing of Mr. Green saying that the police were in possession of that spy laptop that was found on the East Coast with Roger Khan, that was signed for by the then Minister of Health, Ramsamy. Google it, you'll find it. I found it on Contextual News this morning. And I'm sure that if others were to just Google, you're going to see the laptop, it was there.
In fact, court documents would show, and maybe I should look for those court documents that said one of the guys who testified was a guy that was sent back from Guyana to the U.S. to testify again. And the lawyer for Roger Khan, actually then, who himself was convicted and spent some time in jail, actually, Roger Khan's lawyer, I'm speaking of Simmons.
Yes, I remember that.
Actually said that laptop, indeed, that you just spoke about, was in the possession of the Guyana Police Force.
Yeah, the press release is there. I was trying to look for it there. The press release is there with Commissioner Green and flanked by several officers. He was making, because I think there was a question as to where this equipment had disappeared to. And Green had a press brief and said that the equipment at the time was in the possession of the Guyana Police Force. So, and that's how long ago, or 20 years ago, and technology has moved so rapidly since then, it boggles the mind that a statement like that could be made by the crime chief.
And especially recent, you hear of gold heists and all these things and how those suspects were able to be tracked down via their phones. I don't know. It seems as though somebody's in possession of that. Maybe we should ask Azardine Mohammed whether he is in possession of that, whether he loans that to the police force. I don't know, but maybe Mr. Blanham should be able to answer those questions. I saw somebody made reference to 2 years ago, a 13-year-old boy by the name of Ryan Prasad was shot and killed, and allegedly by a stray bullet coming from security guys of Azardine Mohammed. I don't know how accurate that is, but these are things that I want the police force to investigate, not to turn a blind eye on these sort of crimes, all because, or alleged crimes, all because it's their friends and because somebody donates millions of dollars, somebody give cars to the police force and computers and these sort of things. It's got to stop, because that is why we are in the situation we are in today. Because people give out some crumbs to the Guyana Police Force. They feel they own the Guyana Police Force. They feel they control the Guyana Police Force. They feel they are higher than the Commissioner of Police, that they can yell at policemen, police officers, summon them to offices and all these manner of things, and drive around with sirens. It has got to stop. Whether it is Azardine Mohammed or whomever, it has got to stop, Mr. Paul Slawe. It should not be allowed. And Mark Richmond, his firearm license, whether he has one or not, I suppose he does, should be seized with immediate effect, along with that of Azardine Mohammed, pending the outcome of this murder probe. I don't know. 15 minutes after 2 o'clock. How optimistic are you for a bright Guyana or a bright police force, seeing all and hearing all that we're hearing now?
Well, let me say this. If this matter, as damaging as these allegations are allowed to be swept under the carpet, as they will say in the country, cat eat with dinner. If this, such a serious matter, is allowed to be swept under the carpet, and I'm speaking here about the murder of Ricardo Fugendes, and I'm speaking also of the allegations of the corruption and the bribe that was paid to have this matter corrupt. If this is allowed to go under the carpet, we as a nation, I think we're doomed. In terms of law enforcement, I think we are doomed. As I said, cat eat with dinner. And country people will understand exactly what we mean by that.
Not only country people, them tongue people get shine now. They understand that they get shine. Cat eat with dinner for truth. We have heard, and as we prepare to wrap up, allegations made by Sue against Barra Jack Dio. Allegations, mind you, serious allegations, bribery, corruption, and so forth. Weeks ago, we heard Irfan Ali said that he wants an investigation, and Jack Dio said that he doesn't mind an investigation. Weeks now, and there hasn't been any investigation. Soku seemed to be silent on the matter. Your take?
Well, in terms of investigation, let's remember that following the Brickdam fire and the fire at OPR, statements were made by the president and the vice president that they were going to seek outside assistance to get to the bottom of those fires, because they were convinced that they were intellectual authors, overseas intellectual authors. Now, and nothing happened then. That is, the dam fire was October last year. So how convinced I am that they are going to get investigators, I am not convinced. But let me say this, and listen to this carefully, my viewers. If, as they are proclaiming that they are so innocent, why are you afraid of an independent investigation? Perhaps you might be concerned about a local investigation because you want to say, well, people are tainted, one political side or the other. And if you have people from the local jurisdiction, they might manipulate things to make you look bad. So therefore, you should have an international, independent people. But you are so innocent, and you do not want to have an independent investigation. That tells me something. And what it tells me is that they are not as innocent as they are publicly proclaiming. Certainly. Somebody said it correctly, do nothing, fear nothing. I am before the court, with four criminal charges. And I have said repeatedly, and I'm saying it again, I am looking forward to the day to go into court and clear my name, because I know those charges were all trumped up and I will be able to clear my name. They should be saying the same thing. They should be saying the same thing, that we are so innocent that we are willing to have a inquiry to prove our innocence. But they're not going to do that. They are not going to do that. And that suggests to me, again, I say that they are not as innocent as they are trying to publicly proclaim.
Certainly not as innocent as they're trying to, because anybody would want to clear their names. Anyone. But these guys are not saying that. Remember that it is Irfan Ali who was actually charged what is it? 19 fraud charges. 19 fraud charges. And he wasn't eager to clear his name. In fact, every time he rushed to his lawyer to block the court from proceeding with those things. Mr. Slawe, before we go, I know I have a habit of always saying before we go, I have heard, and the public, they have also heard, members of the public, that Azardine Mohammed, getting back to him because he is one of the suspects in the murder probe, suspect, mind you, in the murder probe of Gundes, that we are hearing that Azardine gifted Irfan Ali several vehicles, one of which Mr. Ali is using as his presidential vehicle. How concerned are you about these sort of allegations, sir?
Well, again, allegations can be made. Anyone can make an allegation. And as the person would say, you have to look to see who is the alligator, who is the person making the allegation. So allegations can be made. Let's understand this. If you're a police officer, many times people make allegations against you. But then sometimes when the time the allegation is made, depending on who the person the allegation is made against, you tend to be right away you've said, no, that doesn't accord with what I know of that person. But at the end of the day, investigate to find out what is the truth of it. That is why this thing, investigation, is there, because when allegation, you don't charge and you don't convict based on allegations. You have to investigate to either prove or disprove the allegation, and that is what we are saying should happen. We are not saying that that these people, Bascom called Caesar, he called Blanham. In the case of Sue, we are not saying that these people are, I am not saying that these people are guilty. I am saying that those are allegations. And I am saying that when allegations are made, they should be investigated to prove or disprove the allegation. That is what should happen. And that is what should happen in any properly run society. Have the allegations investigated, because if you do not do that, and it should, let me digress, well, not digress, but let me say it should be in the interest of the persons against whom these allegations are made, if you are innocent, to have the allegations investigated so that your name can be cleared. Because if that does not happen, you will go through the remainder of your life with this cloud hanging over you in terms of whether you did do this act or not.
Absolutely. Some folks are not eager to have their names cleared. One of the things that Azardine Mohammed should have done, instead of issuing a long, irrelevant so-called press statement about some other gold dealer, that we are not concerned about personal fights and whatever it is between them. We are concerned about this murder probe. That's the issue. And so Azardine Mohammed should have been able to say to his security guy, Mark Richmond, look, we're going to walk into police headquarters. We are going to allow ourselves to be interviewed. We're going to give a statement, and that's it, because we want to clear our names. We're not seeing that at all. And neither is the police interested in that. The crime chief is not interested in that. Mr. Hicken is not interested in that. So, but speaking of the car, there is this allegation, again, going back, that Azardine Mohammed gifted to Irfan Ali several vehicles before and after Irfan Ali was sworn in. Allegations, mind you. Let's go to this tape before we wrap up.
Is not using an official car at the moment. The presidential number plate crest has been put on the vehicle that he used before. And so Dr. Ali into this role as president as the days go ahead. So that's Dr. Ali leaving the Artichoke Conference Center in the vehicle that he's been driving around with for the longest while. A presidential vehicle did come here, but Dr. Ali is not using that vehicle. He is moving off with the vehicle that he has been in. Didn't even have time to get a proper sheen on that vehicle, just the presidential insignia on that vehicle, and Dr. Ali is off, driving off for the first time as the president of Guyana. The security detail that turned up with the presidential car organized by the uh, protocol office of the Ministry of the Presidency has been left in the parking lot. Uh, the president has drove. You can see outside there's a group of supporters who are waiting there. They're waving the PPP flag as Dr. Ali makes his way out of.
Art, enough of that kind of annoying broadcast. I don't know, but that was just to show the vehicles, and I wish that Irfan Ali can issue a press release as to whether he got those vehicles from Azardine Mohammed or Azardine Mohammed, since he likes to ask folks to write up so-called press release for him, that he can also have someone write up a press release to say whether he gifted Irfan Ali those vehicles or not. And it's important. Why it's important? Because here it is that there's a mortar probe, and there is this perception, widespread perception, that Azardine Mohammed is being protected by Irfan Ali and is being forced to, members of the Guyana Police Force are being forced to protect him as well. All perception, mind you. Mr. Paul Slawe, former Assistant Commissioner of Police, now a talk show host as well. You have your own program. Let me just allow you for your closing remarks, sir. Go ahead.
Well, Mark, I just want to say thanks for the opportunity to express my views on this program. I did so express lots of views on this issue yesterday on my program, Speaking Out, which is aired every Wednesday at 11 o'clock. And, you know, on YouTube, all the episodes are there. And I am going to continue to speak out, to speak truth to power, and to call out on corruption. And we do a lot of teaching. And I said, my colleague, Mr. Conway, we do a lot of teaching. We pass a lot of information to those in the force who will want to benefit from that type of information. So I'm glad for this opportunity, and I'm going to use every opportunity to make sure I call out corruption, I call out incompetence. I'm going to use every opportunity. So I'm glad for this opportunity this afternoon to once again do so. And I thank you very much for the opportunity.
And as often, we thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule, because you're retired, you could have been reading, you could have been writing, you could have been preparing for another episode of your show, which would be the 36th episode. Or you could have been out in the garden planting something that you can reap, and instead of going at the market and have to pay a hefty price for it because of cost of living. Mr. Slawe, I know I have mentioned that there is a senior officer who has filed for asylum in the United States of America. I'm going to ask you from the standpoint of how does that, obviously I've seen the evidence, I have the facts with me, I know who that officer is, but I know you would say, being the former policeman that you are, you don't have the evidence, neither do you have the facts, so you can't speak on the matter. But I'm just talking specifically about the perception now that a senior officer has filed for asylum, the optics rather. How does that make the Guyana Police Force look at this point in time?
Well, as I say, the thing look bad. You know, people said the thing look bad. But let me remind you and the viewers that it is not unprecedented. If you recall, some time ago, a particular controversial senior officer went to Canada where he sought.
Oh, wait a minute, Mr. Slawe. You know, I don't like interrupting guests, especially guests like yourself or anybody in particular, unless there's a reason. You did mention there's a particular policeman who went to Canada, applied for asylum and was denied, and he was actually, quote unquote, sent packing out of. You're talking about Steve Marai there.
Deported, not sent back. You're using fancy term. He was deported to
Steve Marai, who's actually close to Irfan Ali now.
And eventually was promoted. So he was promoted.
Go ahead.
So the record. So I'm saying it is not unprecedented. It happened before. And in terms of the optics, it looks very bad. You don't know what the reason that he would have used. But coming at this particular time with these damning allegations by Dion Boscombe, one would think that perhaps there's a good move, and perhaps others should seek to make similar moves.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Slawe, for correcting me to say that a nice word to say that Marai was actually sent back when, in fact, he was deported from Canada. thank you so much for your time, and looking forward for your next program. When is it again? Because we'd love to stream it
Every
here.
Wednesday, it's every Wednesday at 11 o'clock on YouTube and the Facebook page by the same name, Speaking Out, Exposing Corruption and Incompetence. And all the episodes are there. So if you were to go to YouTube now, you're going to find from episode 1, 22nd of December, I think it was last year, up to the latest episode, which was yesterday. They're all there, so you can be brought up to date with all the issues. And we have addressed all the issues that are current as the issues come up. The Quinton Bacchus killing, the Orange Boston killing, all of those things are there, and you can see what has been said about those things. And as I've said, I've used it to pass on nuggets of information to serving members of the force, and they have been reaching out to me to tell me how useful, how informative they have found the program, and I will continue to try to share the knowledge. And I did say that one of the reasons to why I decided to use this medium is because in the past, I was a frequent contributor, lecturer to senior and other policemen in the force. But since I am now persona non grata, I don't expect an invitation to be extended. And even if an invitation is extended, I will not accept the invitation. But I thought there was still need to pass on the knowledge, which of course I gained through taxpayers' money. It's taxpayers' money that was used to send me to get all the overseas training that I got. So I feel a responsibility to give back, and therefore I'm using that platform to give back, to educate, and to inform.
Thank you so much, Mr. Slawe. We appreciate your giving back. You giving back, it's a sincere giving back. Unlike some sort of people who feel that their giving is a sincere and a good gesture. But we thank you for your giving back, sir. Let us hope by time your next program, Cat wouldn't eat the people's dinner. Cat eat with dinner with what's happening in the Guyana Police Force. Thank you so much, Paul Slawe.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right, Mr. Paul Slawe there, former Assistant Commissioner of Police, always ready to speak his mind. We just wish that there would be more, or there are more folks like Paul Slawe and Mr. Conway, for both former policemen, officers, willing and always willing to speak their minds on issues and straightforward about it as well. So we salute and we thank those guys, and we encourage them to speak up even more. Mr. Slawe did mention that other police officers should go the route of probably exposing what is happening in the Guyana Police Force right now. But I'm sure that there are lots of officers who are speaking with folks. Maybe they are speaking with agents outside of Guyana. Who knows? Mind you, I'm not saying that that's the. Who knows what's happening these days, right? And so we shouldn't be surprised if extradition and all these sort of things, requests, are being made. Who knows? We just shouldn't be surprised at these things, right? All right. I showed earlier through our operator Lemon several vehicles being used by Irfan Ali and his wife, and we're hearing that those vehicles were gifted to them by Azzuddin Mohammed. And Azzuddin Mohammed is a suspect, mind you, suspect in the murder of Paper Shorts. Suspect, he along with his security guy, Mark Richmond. And now if they are concerned about any sort of ensuring that their names are not soiled out there on a murder probe, then they should present themselves to the police, walk into the police station, CID headquarters, just like anybody else. This is not a situation where people should feel that they're above the law, that somebody for their family could hit and kill a pedestrian or two pedestrians and they're not arrested. They can't go to the station. They're just allowed to leave the scene, and all these manner of things. These are things that are happening. And we know with the recent situation with a relative of Azzuddin Mohammed who struck and killed somebody out on Mandela Avenue, I think 2 persons. We're not seeing we haven't heard any report of an arrest, a detention, nothing of that sort. And If we allow certain people to feel as though they are above the law in Guyana, they can control the Guyana Police Force, they can control Irfan Ali. Guyana is not their plantation, it's no one's plantation. Guyana belongs to all of the citizens, and all citizens should feel as though the system is there to protect them, not somebody who's outside of the system, where this perception that they are controlling the system. It has got to stop. It has got to stop. And I hope the acting commissioner of police is watching. It has got to stop one way or the other. No one is above the law, not even Hazardine or Azardine Mohammed. And with all the money that they claim that they have, they now have money, right? Is not above the law. Let's go back to these vehicles, and we hope that Irfan Ali would say where he got these vehicles from.
Is not using an official car at the moment. The presidential number plate crest has been put on the vehicle that he used before. And so Dr. Ali into this role as president as the days go ahead. So that's Dr. Ali leaving the Artichoke Conference Center in the vehicle that he's been driving around with for the longest while. A presidential vehicle did come here, but Dr. Ali is not using that vehicle. He is moving off with the vehicle that he has been in. Didn't even have time to get a proper sheen on that vehicle, just the presidential insignia on that vehicle, and Dr. Ali is off, driving off for the first time as the president of Guyana. The security detail that turned up with the presidential car organized by the protocol office of the Ministry of the Presidency has been left in the parking lot. The president has drove. You can see outside there's a group of supporters who are waiting there. They're waving the PPP flag as Dr. Ali makes his way out of the Artichoke Conference Center. So that's Dr. Ali has left the compound, and as we've mentioned, he chose not to use the official car that was sent for him. That was the vehicle that was sent for him. The number plate was taken off of that. I don't know what they call it actually, if it's a number plate or what. But the thing that is in front of the vehicle, the presidential insignia, that was taken off and put on the personal vehicle that Dr. Ali was using. And you can see the presidential guard service there standing around with that car. We suppose it will head off very shortly as others continue to leave the venue. The First Lady Arya Ali is going to go get into her vehicle at this point in time. You can see her getting into her vehicle there. It looks brand new. There's, from what we can see, the plastic is still on the seat. First Lady Arya Ali is heading off with her mother and her son, Zaid. Earlier she spoke with us, and she said that she was sure Irfan Ali was going to work very hard. So joining her at the back is her mother and her mother-in-law, the mother of is not you.
All right. Wow. Annoying reporting, actually. Annoying voice, but some reporters in Guyana. That's that guy who says he's a reporter, Neil Marks. Quite annoying indeed. Back in the days, we would never have such a reporter talking about a so-called presidential swearing in and all these manner of things. I don't know. But those are the vehicles in question, and Mr. Irfan Ali should be able to respond to that. And Azardine Mohammed could be able to say whether he did give those vehicles to Irfan Ali and his wife. It's not irrelevant. It's important at this point in time to know. Some people are saying, see you later, Mark. Hey, you guys like to overwork me, right? I don't know, but it's Thursday night, right? Yeah, you guys should be able to see me later at 9 o'clock. Hopefully by then we'll get some more information, and not just about this murder probe Fagundes, also known as Paper Shorts, should be able to talk about the status of the elections petitions and all these manner of things, all other things, the Sue investigations, all these things we should be talking about as well. I'll see you guys later, right? God bless you, and God bless our beautiful country. Gosh, sad, sad day for that country in every aspect. Sad day for the Guyana Police Force. And I call on other police officers to speak out, to send information, to continue talking with others outside of Guyana. Continue talking to others and share credible information and evidence. It's working. God bless you all.
Hello, this is attorney Shellen Washington, owner and founder of the Washington Law Firm, located at 455 Utica Avenue in Brooklyn, New York. We're specialized in medical malpractice, personal injuries, matrimonial law, and landlord and tenant. If you're in need of legal representation, please give us a call today. The number to call is 718-877-3100. Consultation is free at no cost to you. So call us today to see if we can be of any assistance to your legal needs. Again, the phone number to call us is 718-877-3100.